I just went to the bathroom. Nelson Cruz was in there. Just after a home run from Judge, we've got Stan at the plate.
Is there a rest of that story? Or?
Now a block. He is doing it all. What a day for Igor Milicic. 76-52, the final score.
Well, he's ready, and this is right here. Well, there were two choices. Either you get up and catch it, or it hits you.
This is Karl Ravech with ESPN, and I hope you're enjoying the morning rush as much as I am.
Karl Ravech, ESPN, college basketball, Major League Baseball, Little League World Series, college baseball during the postseason. If you watch ESPN, you know his voice. Karl, I want to get to what happened in Knoxville, but this is kind of a full circle moment for me. I still remember as I believe, junior or senior in college when I was in Nashville, Tennessee at the Vanderbilt Sports Media Convention. You were one of the main speakers. There was a lot of talented sports writers, sports broadcasters, but I still remember you taking the time to talk to over 100 individuals, one by one, giving great advice. So it's cool to have you on this morning.
Well, I appreciate that. And whatever advice you got, I think it's worked. You're doing well. I'm glad to hear that.
Wasn't exactly the most entertaining game for you and Jimmy on Saturday. We got a chance to listen to him on our airwaves Friday, and I'm going to be honest, I was expecting a much better game. What did you see in Thompson Bowling Arena from the Arkansas Razorbacks, and why did they just get demolished Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, they were badly outplayed. It depends on the language you use. I'm sure some people would say they got punked. They didn't show up. I mean, the idea that the other team had, more offensive rebounds than you had rebounds. They didn't get a butt on anybody. They didn't fight, and that's there's a lot of things you can do on a basketball court, but effort is the first thing that you have to have, and they didn't have the effort. They didn't match the effort of Tennessee. There were shots that went in and out and all that stuff, but none of that matters when you're giving up all these rebounds, especially on the defensive end. What did Milicic have? 17 rebounds. It was a depressing performance from an Arkansas perspective on a big stage with a massive opportunity to show everybody what this new edition's going to be all about, and they just had some DNSs, did not show.
Karl, you've called a lot of SEC college basketball games before. You've been on the big ones many times with John Calipari in Lexington. So you've seen his team struggle early. I know they've got a freshman point guard, Billy Richmond, Carter Knox, two other freshmen playing significant minutes. Is this just a typical game that you expect? Like, what is the early read on this Arkansas basketball team?
Yeah, I would say that a freshman point guard on the road against a Zakai Ziegler and a tenacious Tennessee team is a what am I made of right now moment, and planned like Adu, certainly like Thero. They didn't put 40 minutes together. They put 4 minutes at a time, and that was it. That was very disappointing. I will say that going into that game, the idea that it's a freshman point guard, as talented as he is, this was not a great formula for success, because Ziegler takes all this stuff personally. He's obviously been through the wars. He's as focused and determined. Look, if you were going to model your intensity and effort after one guy, he'd be the guy. So you hope that Flan takes something from the way that he approached the game, because Boogie's got all sorts of talent. I mean, there's no, that you're not going to argue, but talent only gets you so far. You've got to work your ass off, and none of them did that in that game.
Karl Ravech is our guest, all over ESPN with MLB, Little League World Series, College World Series, and, of course, on call for the game in Tennessee and Arkansas. Karl, I wonder your perspective as a guy that watches a lot of college basketball, not just in this league. It's pretty consensus that this is the best conference in the country. I'm not willing to say that yet until a team actually wins the national championship. It's been over a decade since Kentucky did it in 2012. How do you compute like the idea of, yes, there's a lot of great teams, but until they actually do it, I don't know if I can jump on a ledge and say that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of – I'm not certain that because UConn has won championships at the Big East is therefore the best conference. I wouldn't make that case. Mm-hmm. I think you're looking at the SEC and the Big Ten as top to bottom best conferences, and I don't necessarily agree that the championship is the ultimate determiner. If Purdue were to win last year, then does that make the Big Ten the best conference? I think top to bottom, talent-wise, freshman, NIL, movement, golly, I mean, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Arkansas, if and when they get it together with, Cal will always talk about this is a work in progress. I think a lot of teams are works in progress, but boy, Auburn and Tennessee are way ahead when it comes to work in progress, and they seem to always be. I worked with Mark Teixeira for years, Major League Baseball, borderline Hall of Fame dude, 400 homers, New York Yankees, Braves, etc., Angels. And he was a slow starter, and at some point you have to wonder, like, well, if you know that, is there anything you can do to change it? Well, why do we just accept slow starts when you look around the country or you look around the majors and you realize, how come he's off to such a hot start? And some of those things, I think, are hills that you kind of pass out on. You don't die on because you can get better, but I would like to see some type of change where you don't have to get off to a slow start. And look, take Kentucky, for example, yesterday. Kentucky's got this thing early this year where already there's this trend that they start games slow. Well, you've got to address that because you're going to run into an Auburn or an Alabama or a Tennessee where if you start slow, you're not going to be able to dig yourself out of that hole. So the idea that Cal's teams have historically started slow, I'd have to go back and look at some of the national championship teams that he had at Kentucky. Did they start slow, or is that just a thing when you don't have 4 or 5 stars all playing together? And I think it's more of that than it is this fallback on we just start slow. I would try to change that. It seems to be too much of a reason for slow starts because that's what we do. Well, then change it.
So did you have a slow start to 2025? Did you have anything you did? You probably were doing something work-related, if I had to guess, on Tuesday night. What did the end of 2024 look like for Karl Ravech?
The end of 2024 off the field, meaning off work, was great. We got a 2-year-old grandson, which is the first, so that part was great. But, yeah, no, we work right through it. Thankfully, November and December is a little bit slow, but I got a chance to call a tremendous game in Las Vegas. A Duke-Kansas game was outstanding. I've seen some really good teams, and Duke is really good. Duke is legit. Tennessee is absolutely legit. So yeah, it's work related, but it's knock on wood. It's healthy, and it's doing something that I love to do, and have been doing it for 30 plus years. So I'm so fortunate, so lucky, and hope to continue it.
I love when you can hear a broadcaster and the joy that they feel during mid-broadcast. You've worked with a number of different guys. Jimmy is obviously the guy that we know around here more than anyone just because he lives right here in Northwest Arkansas. But
yeah,
Karl, what's it like to work with guys like Jimmy, Kyle Peterson, and you mentioned Mark Teixeira and some Hall of Fame type of equivalents.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Yeah, I think the best thing that I can do in my position, as a play-by-play guy or as a host of a Baseball Tonight show, my goal is to make and get the most out of the analysts that I'm working with. And much of that has to do with relationships, knowing the person. I mean, I consider Jimmy to be one of, if not my best friend at ESPN from our work together. I love his personality. He's funny. He's self-deprecating, but he takes it very seriously like I do, but we can laugh when something calls for it. It doesn't all need to be intensity at level, 30 during a broadcast. It's sports. People should enjoy watching it. But what is it about Jimmy? What is it about Tim Kirkchin? What is it about David Ross? How do we tap into things that they want to talk about, challenge them at the same time, and just, again, be comfortable being around them, like being in a green room, driving to and from a game, hanging out at an airport where it's two friends doing it as opposed to coworkers. And I've always tried to do that. I've had great success. I have a lot of very, very good friends who have been working with me and stay friends after. Alex Cora, Aaron Boone, David Ross, Dusty Baker, Buck Showalter. Like, I'll call these people whether they're in the game or out of the game because you establish a trust and a friendship and a relationship with them while you're working.
So, Karl, I want to come back. You used the term challenge there. I wonder how Cal will use what happened Saturday to challenge his team. 2 more ranked opponents. They get Ole Miss on Wednesday night. Then they get Florida on Saturday. It's going to be a stripe out inside of Bud Walton Arena. I know a place that you've been. How does Cal use Saturday to get the most out of his team in these next 2 ranked games?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I think the answer is the mirror. A coach can put the X's and O and game plan out there, and I think I saw Rick Barnes say he thought that Arkansas had a good game plan, and Wagner came out and scored the first 7 points of the game, and if that intensity would continue, you'd feel like, oh well, we're gonna have a game here, and it didn't, because he was the only one that was doing anything in the beginning of that game. Again, I think it's the mirror. I think it's self accountability. You can coach them all you want. And look, Barnes and Calipari are very good friends. Barnes told Jimmy and I the day of the game, I think we talked about it during the game, he listed off the players that he, quote unquote, lit into. And it was a long list. Pre-conference play, Milicic lit into him. Okpara lit into him. Reminded Lanier, lit into him a little bit. It's the assistant coaches that can make the players feel good about themselves. Hey, you played a hell of a game, but that's not the head coach's job. There's some tough love going on there, but at some point you have to look at the game film and then look in the mirror and say, did I do everything I could to help win that game? Did I do everything against my guy to defend him? Did I do everything to keep them off the boards? Collectively, the answer should be no. Is that a Cal thing? I think a lot of it has to do with the players. And look, there's cultures at different places. Hurley has it at Connecticut. Barnes has it at Tennessee. Pearl seems to have it at Auburn. Cal certainly has had it at Kentucky and other places he's been. Culture at UMass 100 years ago was phenomenal. It wasn't just Marcus Camby and Lou Rowe, et cetera. It was what they did, on the court. They went into a game thinking, we're here, we're going to kick your butt. That's how this is going to go. Arkansas didn't have that yesterday. There's no question about it. Now, we're going to be there next Saturday in Fayetteville, Jimmy and I guarantee you we'll see a different team. I mean, there's no question about it. The players have to be accountable in the beginning. The coaches can give you the game plan. They all get on the same page, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. But until they're all on the same page, working their asses off, you're not going to have success. So I think there's going to be a change, but I think it starts with the players analyzing themselves and saying, we did not show up. We're better than that. We were embarrassed.
And that's a great way to end our conversation. Karl Ravech, ESPN on call this past Saturday for Arkansas, Tennessee. And as you just heard, one of his next assignments is going to be back here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Karl, we appreciate you hopping on with us this morning, man.
My pleasure. Keep up the good work. I appreciate being on with you.
BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball to NHL and UFC, head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here.